Hello, listeners. This is Jesse.
And this is Greg.
And you're listening to Spoilers Are Good Actually, the podcast where we revisit some of our old favorite shows and talk about how knowing the ending affects our experience the second time through.
Today we're watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, Book 1, Chapter 17, Northern Air Temple. The way this podcast works is that we start off with a non-spoiler section. It assumes that you've watched everything in the series up until the current episode. That would be episode 17. And then after that, after we've just done discussing it, we move on to the spoiler section. The spoiler section assumes that you've watched all of Avatar: The Last Airbender, all of Korra, and maybe you've even read some of the supplementary material like the books or the comic books. Mm-hmm. We highly encourage for people to stay for the spoiler section. It is called Spoilers Are Good Actually. But you've been warned now in case that actually does bother you.
And one quick content note. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a kids show, but this is not a kids podcast. While we won't be going into any darker or more mature themes than the show itself does, we will be using adult language. So listener, be warned.
Yep. Before we start talking about the episode, we said that we were going to do really quick research on Moses and the burning bush from the last episode, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we can go ahead and start off with that. Mostly, I just wanted to confirm that I was remembering correctly.
Right. Yeah, the burning bush is just the moment when Moses, before he became the huge biblical figure that we know him as, when God appeared before him and basically said, "You will be the one responsible for leading the Israelites out of Egypt." It's as far as the actual story goes, there's not too much actual connection with what we saw in Avatar.
The significance of the burning bush in the Moses story is basically like a call to action.
Right, that's true.
It's, God set this fucking bush on fire to be like, hello, I am here. Look at my power. Be afraid and in awe of me and do what I fucking say.
Right. And then Roku.
Because you have this mission and destiny that you have to do. Yeah, because Roku I said so. And that's
set Aang on fire to say the same thing.
Set Aang on fire.
Yeah, there was just fire generally around Aang. No, wait. Was it?
There was literally a burning bush.
What? No, that's not how we got here.
It was when he was trying to convince Zhang to teach Aang.
Right.
He does basically the same thing and comes out to tell Zhang, you don't trust the fucking Avatar. That's God. Bold. Yeah, which is interesting.
Okay. It was just cool imagery and it worked. Cool.
Yeah, it's interesting to see biblical imagery in a show that otherwise does not take a lot
from Western
directly
culture.
From Western culture and especially Western religions.
Yeah. No, good point. So, this episode though.
Yeah. This episode's fine.
It's good. It's decent. It is basically what I would want the worst episodes of the season to be like if I had control over it, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This would probably be just like the lowest level of acceptable episode for me. It was good. I enjoyed it. But, we just have too many other very, very good episodes to compare this to. We've got too many other really interesting things to look at besides this one, which does explore some really cool, interesting things that really aren't discussed in most of the series. It was an enjoyable 23 minutes, but it was nothing spectacular. Right. Even the fight was, it was fine. Mm-hmm. But, I liked it well enough. Okay, do you have a 10-word summary?
I do. Do you want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay. My 10-word summary is Sokka's stink saves the day. Teo has airbender spirit, actually. It's not my strongest, but it's 10 words.
My 10-word summary is Aang deals with cultural erasure, then the Fire Nation attacked.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, I don't even know where to begin. It is the cultural appropriation episode.
Yeah, it is. And I think that this episode does a decent enough job of not being too over the top about it. And also not too both sides, even though it kind of has to. It kind of is. So, the biggest conflict here is that Aang knows these places intimately. He loves this place. This place is one of his homes. We know that he hailed from the Southern Air Temple, but we also know that as a nomad, he's been to all of the air temples. The Northern Air Temple, they had a little bit of world building where they were like, this is where the Sky Bison Polo finals were. Love that. I love that. That's so great. Imagining just a whole bunch of people on Sky Bison playing polo. So, it matters. But also, this is a temple that's been abandoned for 100 years. And we don't have, I don't know, Department of housing or whatever. What's responsible for preservation and shit in America?
Oh, I mean, that's part of the Park Service and the Department of the Interior.
There's no
state, tribal, local plans and grants.
Right. There's no. That's a very specific bit of information there. Anyway,
definitely didn't work for historic preservation for a while there.
Yeah. So I mean, there's no Department of Interior here. There's nobody that's actually there to speak out for the preservation of this group of people that are completely and utterly wiped out. And the people that moved in here are people that had very real needs for that, for the space. And they also had a genius along with them who had, who wanted to do a lot more and could do a lot more. And
he invented central heating.
Demonstrably, improved all of their lives with his changes. And so we had a lot of Aang really getting angry about that. And what I appreciate is just Teo, the one kid that was with him, he was very understanding, right?
Teo's cool.
He was very kind and gentle, and he did what he could to make up for it. I don't know, I liked the way Teo approached the entire thing.
Especially as a child, he didn't really have any control over the shit that Aang was mad about.
Right. And then, the mechanic was honestly a little flippant about it. But
yeah, that's what was frustrating for me to watch, was there was no attempt in any way to do this in a less destructive manner.
Yeah.
They show us repeatedly these pipes sticking through ancient murals on the faces of monks, just demolishing statues left and right. And I also know that this was probably mostly an aesthetic decision to make the episode more visually interesting, but these pipe systems were super chaotic.
Oh, yeah.
And it's if you had just tried to make them a little more organized and planned out, you probably could have avoided a lot of the damage.
Yeah, and it does kind of match with what we see of the mechanic. Does this look like the kind of guy that really clearly thought out all these things before he built a pipe, or did he think this has to go from here to there? That's a straight line. This has to go from here to there. That pipe's in the way. Straight line, go directly around it ish, right? I can believe that, but also it does show a lack of regard for the place that you're in, for the fact that there were clearly, obviously, people that lived here and treated this place with some level of reverence. And I mean, we didn't really get to explore that.
Now, you don't need to be an air nomad to recognize the age and spiritual significance of a lot of that art. But I don't know. The mechanic just doesn't give a shit about art.
Yeah.
Which I guess that's fine for someone to feel that way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess Aang forgave him, so we might as well.
Yeah. I mean, I like the fact that a lot of the forgiveness came through, not through Aang's reactions with the mechanic, but with his interactions with Teo, where he was Aang cared more about the culture that was being preserved or lost, or, he talked about the quote unquote spirit that you need to have to be an airbender, and how, you know, when he first saw them and he knew immediately that these weren't airbenders because they were only gliding. He was like, from the way they're flying, they don't have spirit. But then he like got to know Teo, got to interact with him, learned a bit more about him, and he was like, no, you know, for all intents and purposes, you are an airbender. You know, and I liked that bit of it. I liked just the way Aang comes to terms with it is by, I don't know, kind of recognizing that things are happening, things are changing, and that's just how it is sometimes, but that doesn't mean that everything's lost and destroyed. That said, yeah, the architecture itself is shot to hell. There's nothing else we're going to be able to do about it, really. Fuck.
No, and frankly, it should be, like, structurally, like, not safe anymore after that giant explosion.
Oh, God. We're going to talk about that explosion, too. Yeah. Sokka's a fucking madman.
Yeah. On kind of the topic of Aang's reaction on, like, a religious and cultural level also brings up a broader question of, like, progress versus tradition.
Yeah.
Which is only touched on in the original series. They definitely go into it a lot more in Korra, in the comics, in more of the extended universe. Because, you know, with the basic setting and world building that was created for this show, it's a inevitable question.
Right.
When you have an industrial revolution happening among you.
Right. And
around you.
Right. And it shows that, like, progress has a very strong argument in its favor. Just the very fact that in every single battle, for, you know, where technology is relevant, the Fire Nation is at the advantage. The nation that has seen the most progress is also the attackers, the, like, threat, the big problem, the people that are about to take over the world. It kind of implies that, like, you know, first of all, progress can be bad, right? Like, the bad guys have the progress, but also the fact that you can't ignore the forward march of technology. You can't act like it's not going to be there, and that it's not going to influence what you do and what happens in the world around you, because if nothing else, people that have it will use that power over you until you find a way to equalize.
Yeah, it really portrays the technology both as, like, a tool and a strategy and, like, a savior for our side of the war, right? But also it is kind of associated with, like, a necessary evil.
Yeah.
Because it is so tied to the Fire Nation and their ability and will to control other people through technology, which is just, it's a very neoliberal take on technological advancement, which, you know, is in line with the rest of the show.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily disagree.
Okay. So I think my favorite aspects of the show, of this episode, are mainly the characters. I loved Teo and his father. I looked it up, or at least I, did a quick Google search or whatever. As far as I'm aware, Teo's father isn't named. He's just the mechanist. And so I'm just gonna call him Daedalus, because anybody that knows Greek mythology will recognize that we have a genius inventor who made wings, and his son who also uses wings. The son is the more well-known Icarus, and so I liked seeing this very clear parallel to these characters, but also the fact that Icarus isn't the problem in this story. Icarus isn't the one that, quote unquote, flew too close to the sun. Mm-hmm. That's Daedalus. That, like, in this story, it's Daedalus, which is interesting. Fast fact for Greek mythology nerds, Daedalus also made, like, the labyrinth that the Minotaur was locked in. Fuck, I'm not even gonna bother trying to remember the name of that hero. Either way, just, like, I liked this idea. I like the fact that, like, we really drew on these very well-known mythological figures for these really cool characters. And then we made really interesting spins on them, too. Most notably, we have Teo, who is paraplegic. And like it's a really cool twist where we normally just have, as far as everyone's aware, like Icarus is just a regular. Like he is a person who has all 4 limbs working, and there's nothing unique and special about him except for the fact that he doesn't like to listen to his dad and dies for it.
I mean, it really changes the like theming and significance and symbolism of the story when there's a whole bunch of backstory and reasoning and like selfless reasons for the like wings to be created,
right? As
opposed to just like
they created the wings to escape Crete, which is the city they were in. I don't remember if it was like we need to escape for actual like dire safety things or whatever. But there are at least readings of the like legend where it is like fleeing a danger.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no.
But their story at least got to Katara. She was crying a little bit listening to their tale of woe.
Yeah, I actually hadn't noticed that until this time around. I'm pretty sure I've watched this episode several times. Oh, another dead mom. Yeah, you're
Excuse
right.
me.
Yeah. Another dead mom.
That was an actual cough. That was not a like joking passive aggressive cough. Sorry.
Yeah, no, another dead mom.
But Katara found it compelling, so guess it's a good story.
I don't know. It's a sad story.
It was a sad story.
They're refugees who are fleeing, this time a flood. Not like explicitly the Fire Nation attacking anything. They said there was a flood that Teo got injured in and his mother died in. And they found this temple somehow. So, I don't know.
Which is, I don't know. I'd have to look at a map of the world to see where we think they came from.
Yeah, it's implied that
because that's interesting.
Yeah, like it's
that they were close enough that was an option.
Right, like they, I assume they're like Earth Kingdom refugees from like the bottom of the same mountain that they're on, but like we don't know that. But yeah, it's, I don't know, it's interesting. Sokka had a lot of fun showing off his mad scientist side with the Mechanist. Like Aang was like, "This is terrible," and Sokka's like, "Are you kidding? This is amazing," which was interesting to see. Also, just like Sokka is just like enamored by the new technology and all of the weird, interesting things that can be done. He became best friends with the Mechanist and started helping him out with the hot air balloon and the gas leak and the bombs. It showed that like this is Sokka's niche, right? Like,
yeah,
he's our schemer. He's our our tools guy.
Yeah, it's consistent with his character that this is the kind of stuff that would really interest him.
I really liked it.
Yeah, again, just season 1 has a lot of very Sokka heavy episodes. Like this one is less so than the other ones, but still.
I mean,
he has a lot of screen time. Katara does nothing.
Yeah, Katara does almost nothing this episode.
Which just, side note, because I don't actually have much to say about this, and I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but why in the battle was she relegated to like bomb passing out duty when they're on the top of a mountain covered in snow and she's a waterbender?
Yeah.
And Aang literally even at one point does an avalanche on them. It's fine because they all ran away and nobody got killed by the avalanche. They made sure to show us that. It just made them run away. It didn't murder anyone.
Right,
Don't worry. Don't worry.
Nobody dies.
Aang wouldn't kill anyone except the like hundreds of people that he already has.
Aang has never killed anybody in his life. Never.
Anyway, I just like Katara just felt like an afterthought this whole episode, which was disappointing.
Yeah, she just wasn't important this episode.
And no, Iroh and Zuko.
They also weren't. They were not important.
They were not in this episode at all. Which, there is a pattern to which episodes I'm like, this is all right, and this is great, but also, I think that is more than just my personal opinion.
No, I agree.
I think a lot of these episodes, I don't know. I don't think we have unpopular opinions on like which episodes are really good and which episodes are just okay.
Yeah.
But the pattern is there that the episodes are just okay tend to not have our own Zuko in them, and Katara plays a smaller role.
Yeah.
All I'm saying.
I said before, Sokka's a fucking madman. Who in their right minds is flying in an airplane? They're like, we need to take out those guys down there. They take the engine of their airplane and they drop it on those people. Who does that? Who does that? Because that's what Sokka did. I mean, it's not an airplane. It's a fucking, I don't know, hot air balloon. But it's the exact same concept. He said, the thing that I need to stay in the air is better on the ground, blowing people up. The ground directly below me, blowing people up. That's better. God. And that was just the wildest decision in my head when he was like, it's the only bomb we've got. And then we had that little scene where they were like, they're retreating, and everyone was like cheering, and then all of a sudden, we're going down!
I loved that. I don't think it was intended to be a particularly funny moment.
It was supposed to be like a mood whiplash thing where like, it's like, yes, yay, oh shit, fuck, we gotta save him. But it was just kind of funny.
The timing of it and the way it was cut, it was just a little too rushed and out of nowhere. It was so funny.
No, I
absolutely fucking hilarious. I mean, that seems like a decent place to transition into the golden fuck if you're ready.
Yeah, there's not too much else. We did see that little bit of foreshadowing at the end, which is ominous as hell, where the guy was like, this loss will be the key to many victories to come.
Yeah, something
hitting
like
up the hot air balloon. After Aang spent the entire episode talking about how so long as we rule the skies, we've got all this power or whatever.
That's we'll be safest in the crypts.
Yeah, so.
Same energy.
I just wanted to bring that up and mention it here. Of course, we'll explore it more in the spoiler section. But yes, I am now ready for the golden fuck. And by I'm ready for the golden fuck, I really mean that friend of the pod, Emmy, is ready for the golden fuck.
Yes, she is. Hold on. Let me get my phone because I want to read something.
Okay.
Okay, so before we get to our actual nomination, I would just like to read the first message she sent to us when she was sending the nomination. This was the first message she sent, which was, the number one golden fuck goes to me at the end of the episode when the guy is like, our loss today will lead the way to many victories or whatever because they got the balloon, all caps, oh fuck. And I think that's all of us.
Yeah. I mean, it was ominous as hell. It was definitely just like one of the darker endings to any episode that we've seen so far. I think that's an appropriate time to say fuck. Obviously, if I say fuck to the episode, they're not going to change the rating, but still.
Yeah, it's a good joke. It's a good joke.
Yes.
So do you want to read off her actual nomination?
Yeah, I'll read it. So, the first of Emmy's 2 nominations is hashtag let Appa say fuck. And specifically, let Appa say fuck off when he literally just headbutts 2 of those spiky ass tanks with like it's no big deal. I love that. It was really good. I
also had a nomination for Appa that I'll throw in here.
Oh my god. We should make
Appa in the subtitles.
God.
When he and Katara are just in the clouds and all of a sudden those fucking grappling hook chains just come out around him and he yells and does a little maneuver on his side, that was a fuck.
Also, Appa was distressed a lot this episode. He every time he flew somewhere around here, somebody or something was bothering him. He was not happy for a good chunk of it.
Poor baby.
And then Emmy's second nomination, which I actually agree with, is a very good one, was when Aang like first sees the temples. When Aang says this whole place stinks, and then after that he uses his staff and knocks out like I think a full fucking crane. That's when he should say this whole place fucking stinks. I can't deliver very well because I'm not good at saying the word fuck, but
we can't all have that talent.
We're not all Zuko. No, but like for real, there was a level of anger and outrage in Aang at that moment that I agree with. It very much was like a very like I'm gonna say the F word now kind of moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be a very serious fuck.
Yeah.
My actual nomination is more of a humorous fuck. My official nomination goes to Katara when she is using the glider for the first time, and she's like answering a question that Aang is yelling at her, and halfway through she swallows a bug.
Oh.
I think in the actual show she like stops mid sentence and just goes blah, bug.
A bug, yeah.
And fuck, bug.
Solid. I do think
I like it.
I like it. I like Emmy's more. I think that the one with Aang just expressing his vitriol and outrage at what they've been doing to this air temple. I think that's a good time to say fuck, and that's the one I'm voting for.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one scenario where Aang loses his cool and loses control,
without going Avatar state.
Well, with or without.
Oh, with or without.
It had nothing to...
Finish.
Yeah, just let me finish my sentence. There's one time, like one type of scenario where Aang loses his cool and loses control. Sometimes he goes into the Avatar state. He doesn't always. And I think losing control would be when he would say fuck. Right? And that's when he gets really angry about things, and especially angry about, like, loss of his culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's, I think, a really appropriate time. If he is going to, in any of these scenarios, say fuck, it's going to be because he is pissed that somebody is destroying the air temple. So yeah, as much as I love mine and really want to hear Katara say fuck,
she's got plenty.
I gotta agree.
Katara's got plenty of time to say fuck.
Spoilers are good, actually.
I mean, we've just got 2 other seasons. I don't even have to bring up spoilers for that one. She's got so much time, unless she dies next episode.
Probably gonna give one soon. Is all I'm saying.
Anyway, let's we moving on to the spoiler section.
Yeah, sure. In the first section about the themes of like progress versus tradition.
Yeah.
And mentioned how that comes up a lot more in other like post-canon material. Specifically, I was thinking of 2 of the comics. There's The Rift and North and South.
Okay. I remember the Rift. Wait. The Rift is the one where they're making Republic City? No, that's The Promise.
Yeah.
I don't remember these.
The Rift is Toph.
Okay.
Centric. Honestly, it's a very similar plot, I'm pretty sure. They're building some kind of like factory in a place that has
her dad's involved.
Yeah.
Right.
They're building some kind of factory in a semi like religious sacred space. And it's honestly, a lot of it is just the plot of this episode, part 2.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, in that episode, Toph does, like, confront her dad, who pretends not to know her, which is really fucked up.
Yeah.
But it, again, leads us to the same place of, like, we just have to let progress happen. We can't stop it. It's inevitable.
Okay.
North and South is more interesting because it involves Katara and Sokka going home and dealing with the rebuilding of the Southern Water Tribe.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of, like, Northerners coming, helping build it up. And, you know, Katara is really upset because it's changing so much and they're doing a lot of things like the Northern way, and a lot of her traditions and things that are really important to her are being kind of left in the wayside in order to, like, build up the city. And Sokka, of course, as we saw, like, in this episode, is very pro, like, rebuilding. Right. He's like, our culture was basically dead anyway. Like, we just need to move forward and make new traditions. And so there's this whole conflict between them and with their dad, because Hakoda has a girlfriend from the north, and she is very, like, pro-progress, and Katara fucking hates her, obviously. And again, it just kind of ends with, like, well, progress is inevitable. We're just fine.
Yeah, it's not a very nuanced take on it.
No, that's really my problem with it, isn't that it is wrong per se, just, like, boring. Yeah. Like, what was the point if that's where we're gonna lead? But the interpersonal conflicts in North and South make it a lot more interesting.
Okay. So
that's a theme. And I think it is, you know, partially seen in Korra in smaller ways.
I was thinking about progress versus tradition. This one doesn't involve technology, and we're also generally on the progress side of this one, and it's what's going to happen in the next episode.
True.
Right?
True.
Where they've got the entire tradition of women are in the healing huts, and Katara's like, I am a fighter. You need to teach me waterbending. And he's like, go back in the girl huts where you belong. Right? Like, you know, it's also another, like, progress versus tradition plot, but it's also a very old feminist, you know, plot. Like,
yeah, I think it is less clearly progress in the same way that, like, technological growth is. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there's a much clearer, like, forward momentum when it comes to building things and technology and transportation and electricity and stuff like that versus like women's rights. Like, we tend to think of it as progress.
I will say that they do tie it into progress, quote unquote, a little bit more by talking about their, like, archaic tradition of forced marriage and tying like, what's his name? I forgot. Paku? Yeah. And he's got it, like, you know, he had his, he proposed to the grandmother and she ran away. Then we'll talk about it more next episode. Yeah. There's a lot of weird things that are going on with it. I do think they try harder to actually tie it more to progress versus tradition.
Yeah, I guess I'm not explaining my point well. I don't know. We think of, like, social equality as progress and moving forward, and you generally see a pattern in time of, like, less equality in the past and more now, but that's not, like, inherently true and inevitable in the same way that technology is just going to get more and more powerful.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, where social progress, quote unquote, does not necessarily have to be in the pattern that we are talking about it. It doesn't necessarily have to be that 50 years in the future there will be more rights for more people generally.
Yeah, like, that's hopefully the goal. Right. If you're a good person, that is generally the pattern that has happened, but it's messier and much more ups and downs and more complex than that. Whereas technology pretty much just, like, steams forward.
Right.
Things just grow and we get better and better at doing things.
Right. Barring a catastrophe that sends us backwards, and this is, the kind of thing that actually is world shifting. We will have more technology 50 years in the future than we do now. Just is a fact.
Yes.
That makes sense. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So to me, that is slightly... It's just a little bit of a different question.
Right.
I have a lot of thoughts. I am so excited for the Waterbending Master.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite episodes of the season.
It just... I don't know. Ever since I did that summer at Oxford with the Human Rights Law program, I took a class on like gender and sexual minorities in human rights law.
Okay.
And the teacher I took it with was super cool. We read her book and everything, and a lot of what she talked about was like women's rights in Middle Eastern countries. She was Armenian American.
Okay.
And the conflict between human rights for like women and queer people and disabled people and what is viewed as like cultural traditions.
Right.
And how do you push for equality when you know that is right and that's what you believe in, but you also have a level of like respect and concern for taking away culture.
Yeah.
Right. And she has some really cool thoughts on that, and I am excited to talk about them. Sorry to take too much time on that in this episode.
Yeah. I'm also excited to talk about it. But as far as this episode goes, another thing that comes up that I wanted to talk about, and I know you did too, was the representation of people with disabilities.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Avatar, I mean, how do you feel about it, first of all? I guess I should ask that first.
I feel similarly about disability representation in Avatar. I feel similar to how I do about just the representation in general. Whether it is like gender or racial or cultural, all of those things. When it came out and in the context of all the other kids shows that were on television at the time, even now, it does a really good job.
Right.
Right? Like there is a lot of diversity in so many ways. And you have feminist characters, you have women that are important. It does a lot of things well, and it also just does things.
Yeah.
Where a lot of other media for this demographic, like for this audience, especially back in 2005, just didn't.
Right.
But as an adult in 2021, with the way that like children's cartoons especially have gone the past 15 years, I have a lot more critiques.
Yeah. I think that for the time it was very good, and for now I'm just like, there are things that we can say about it that just like, it's anything we say about it at this point is really just reflective of where we were as a society back then, rather than like a problem with Avatar itself. Because Avatar was relatively progressive, and us saying that like, the biggest people with disabilities are going to be Teo and Toph, right? I don't think there's anybody else that I can think of
off the top of my head.
Right? There might be others, but first of all, it's just the two of them. Second of all, the thing that makes them unique, kind of just like, I don't know. So this is my biggest problem with blind characters generally in fiction. If they have a power, their power is sight. A blind character who has a superpower in fiction has a superpower of better vision than everybody else. That's almost always at least a part of it. I like the fact that they made Toph very, very like, she is our powerhouse of the team. When she shows up, she handles shit. Not just because she can see everything, but also because she's good at what she does. Teo, similarly, he has wings, so his legs are no longer a thing. He no longer has to work. He now can do better than running with his legs.
Right. Like, as with most critiques of especially like representation, it's less a critique of the individual character or media than it is like the trope and the pattern. Right. But with both of them, you run into this problem that you see where whenever disabled characters are introduced, they very, very often have some kind of like supernatural power or some kind of like, they have some kind of ability or technology that erases essentially their disability.
Yeah.
It becomes almost a visual fact or detail.
Yeah.
And with Toph, we just get a lot of jokes about it.
Right.
And it's not often really affecting them as characters. And the main reason this is an issue is because that kind of takes away the connection between people watching in the real world and the characters that is a big like pro of representation. Like that's one of the biggest reasons. Like we see little girls being like, yes, here's a Disney princess that looks like me. Mm-hmm. Right? And it is hard for people who are actually in wheelchairs to have that same amount of connection when the one wheelchair user can fly.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the same.
Right. And obviously, we can't actually talk for people with these disabilities. There are people that, like, have them and have different opinions, then they have them. And those are more valid, at least than mine.
Of course. It is worth mentioning we're able-bodied, but...
But yeah, it's a pattern. And it at least bothers me on, like, an intellectual level. Whenever I've thought a lot of superheroes. And
yeah.
When I see Daredevil, I'm like, okay, but, like... Because, like, he's had abilities that literally give him... He can tell where and when everybody is. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure he's been able to like read like actual text.
Oh, good God.
Right?
Yeah.
And at least some iterations. And it gets to the point where I wonder, what is the point of him being blind other than to give him more, other than to give him like an excuse to hone his hearing and smell to the point where his vision is irrelevant. Mm-hmm. And it's a weird take on it. So I would like to see an iteration. Like before I go more into like what I would like to see out of it, I do want to say like I love the fact though that like we see Teo and he's just like in the wheelchair, and it's not. I mean, like I think they mentioned in passing or whatever, mm-hmm. but it's not a thing we like dwell on or we apologize for or we're upset with. Teo's fucking cool with it all day, every day. He's like, yeah, this these are my legs. These wheels are my legs. Those wings are my legs. I love this. This is fun.
Yeah, I will take imperfect representation any day over nothing. Right.
But at the same time, I wish we were a little bit more creative. I wish we found a way to make Toph very, very powerful and good without saying she also has this ability that allows her to see everything around her at once. How do they do that? I mean, it's not that easy, but like, for example, she could be very good at affecting large swaths of land at once. And, her allies and friends know to get out of the way, and she's just very good at it. I don't actually know. This is just an example. Teo, I mean, like, an easy thing for Teo would just be he is just as smart or smarter than his father and actually is the person that has granted a lot of these people their wings. Mm-hmm. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily want to change these specific characters. I just want to see more characters.
That's fair. Yeah.
With disabilities who, like, are blind or are hard of hearing or need wheelchairs or have prosthetics, and they all have different stories and different, like, hardships and different strengths. Mm-hmm. As opposed to, we have this whole series, there's 2 disabled characters. We love them, and it's, on one level, like, incredible to have 2 disabled characters in this show, but they are both granted these like gifts that counteract the like repercussions of their disability.
Right. And we see Teo for like 4 episodes maybe. He's relevant in 2. This was one of them. The other one's going to be the Day of Black Sun. I guess that's technically 2 episodes. and then he's kind of like in the rest of the group after they're like running away or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's not relevant after that. So I also, there's also just the fact that we do have 2 disabled characters in this series, but only one of them's actually a character for an appreciable amount of time.
Yeah.
Again, these are small critiques. These are not huge things. Like, I can complain all day, but I'm very happy with the way they are represented overall. I love the way Avatar did this. I really like these characters. They're some of my favorites.
Yeah, we can really only talk mostly from like a storytelling and character building perspective. And then, like, I feel like I am synthesizing things that, I have read other people with much more experience and authority on this. And also kind of, projecting how I feel about women characters and queer characters. Yeah. And that kind of representation. Like, it's all we can do.
Yeah. We also have the more, I guess, plot relevant thing about like Aang's very, very poignant foreshadowing about the skies.
Yeah.
Right? How this entire episode sets up the Fire Nation wrecking people's shit in both Day of Black Sun, which is the big battle that they actually win with the balloons, and also the like Sozin's Comet.
Yep. They really spend the whole episode talking about how important it is that they're the only ones who can fly. And now that's not true anymore. Yeah. Because they just left that balloon there, I guess. Didn't.
I mean, no, they didn't go back to get it. Think too hard about it. They didn't go down there to get it. They didn't give this technology to anybody else either. Like they didn't go to like the Earth Kingdom and give them the balloons or whatever the fuck. To their credit, it was very hard to do anything militarily with the Earth Kingdom. We know this.
Yeah, so I wonder, we don't really get much information on where the mechanic man goes after this.
Yeah, my impression was that he just basically stays here until Sokka calls him for the Day of Black Sun. I don't know that, but I also just don't. Maybe,
I guess what I'm thinking is just that it's certainly possible that they are trying to like get this technology to the Earth Kingdom, but they're just so much slower. He was being provided with materials and stuff from the Fire Nation. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that was, there was a bunch of metal and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it would be harder for the Earth Kingdom. So I think it is perfectly like plausible that they are trying to teach like the Earth Kingdom how to build these things and bring this technology to the Earth Kingdom military. But like we already know that they're a disorganized mess.
Yeah.
And the Fire Nation just already has the materials and the infrastructure to like mass produce transportation and like tanks and ships. And it would be a lot easier for them to kind of just repurpose some of those things to make the balloons.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Once they have like a diagram, as opposed to
the Earth Kingdom, which has to source the materials.
Yeah.
They don't have metal benders yet, so they just have to figure out how to fucking do it. They don't. I mean, this is.
And they probably. Like, the problem is that, like, you can't really make them out of a bunch of wood because there's a bunch of fire.
Nope. And how do you make metal?
I don't know.
I don't know. And the process involves fire, I'm pretty sure.
I mean...
And earthbenders don't have that.
Yeah. I mean, that is why the firebenders developed these metal technologies first, isn't it?
Yep.
So, yeah. I don't know that it's... I think it's a fair assumption to say that they are at least trying.
Yeah.
But of course, the Fire Nation is equipped to immediately mass produce war balloons now that they know how to do it.
Yeah. Oof.
Like, it's not that different from mass producing these ridiculous grappling hook tanks. Which, like,
grappling
what the
hook
fuck?
tanks to like flip. Who was the genius that was like, somebody's gonna flip this tank over? It needs to be able to flip.
It needs to have a water balance system.
God. Anyway,
Katara used steam to pop exactly one of them apart, and then went back to watching from the top of the hill.
She used ice to knock over another one, and then she went back. She took out 2 tanks.
Last thing I wanted to bring up real quick. We actually had a bit of an argument about this during the episode, but I interpret, like, Teo's design as having gray eyes.
Teo has light brown eyes. I can believe that one of his ancestors had gray eyes, but I do think he has brown eyes.
It's fine, we'll put up a poll.
Or a picture.
I mean,
Just one of the other, not both.
stupid.
Not only that.
Gonna go post on our Twitter just a picture of this fucking kid's face with no context, no words, no explanation.
Yeah.
Dumb. Anyway, I think they're gray.
Yep.
I think they are varying levels of grayish brown and brownish gray throughout all the scenes, because that's how, like, animation and lighting works. It's not always the exact same color, but I think they're gray. And I think I have mentioned before on this podcast that gray eyes are airbenders.
Yes.
Like Ty Lee has gray eyes. What are you doing?
What are you talking about?
You're posting it on Twitter right now as we speak. They're not gonna... 2 weeks.
I don't know how Twitter works. It might not appear for 2 weeks.
Oh my god. Anyway, I just think it is likely that this village that lived so close to the air temple in the first place and then eventually migrated up there could possibly have some descendants of airbenders in it.
Yeah, I believe that.
And I think Teo is one of them.
I can also believe that. I just
His eyes are gray.
think his eyes are brown.
Oh my god. Like, everyone else in the Earth Kingdom has, like, really dark brown eyes or green eyes. His are very gray. That was it. That was just, like, a small thing that I wanted to say, because I think it's fun to think about.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
It's one of my favorite, like, Avatar conspiracy theories is that, like, there's a bunch of secret fucking potential airbenders out there who just can't airbend because airbending is spiritual.
I don't have access to the...
Haha.
Can you tell me how?
No.
Pretty please?
Absolutely not.
Jesse.
So on that note, that's all we have today.
I don't have access to our Twitter anymore.
I don't know why you don't have access. You should.
I know, I should.
Deal with it later. You should have access to the Twitter. I will help you get back on the Twitter.
Yay.
Just not in this moment. We need to finish recording first.
Well, that's all we have for...
Oh my god.
Avatar: The Last Airbender, Chapter 17. Nope, Book 1, Chapter 17. The Northern Air Temple.
Oh my god.
Join us next time for Book 1, Chapter 18, The Waterbending Master.
Yeah. In the meantime, please give us a follow on our Twitter at SpoilersAreGood. There may or may not be an out-of-context picture of this gray-eyed boy.
Brown-eyed.
Oh my god. On there when you go follow it. But you might have to look back because we're recording this 2 weeks ahead of time, as we always do. Follow us on Twitter at SpoilersAreGood. We also have an email, spoilersaregoodpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to send us any longer theories, questions, emails, anything you don't want to put on Twitter, or if you don't have a Twitter, you can always contact us there. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a follow or rate us on iTunes. That really does help visibility for the podcast. If you could go ahead and leave us a rating.
All right, and until next time, remember, just because it's spoiled doesn't mean it's rotten. And also, Teo has brown eyes.
Oh my god, they're great!
See you next time.